Hello everyone, welcome to Such Online Academy. So today we are going to look at web programming. So this is just a live coding session, and what we're going to look at are the ways or how you can attempt the questions that comes. Maybe you are writing an exam for web programming. So how do you attempt these questions? So along that way, we are going to look at basically we are going to look at how do you code HTML, CSS, JavaScript, maybe at PHP. How do you link all these? How do you link it with the database? Something like that. So we do so by trying to attempt these few questions that I do have here. So you try. I think it's going to be a short and quick tutorial, but please let's try to make it maybe something that we can appreciate later, right? So now let's look at this first question that we have, which says that write HTML code to display the following list of items and add an image below the list. So here the question is actually asking you to create an HTML list, right? So now the issues, how can you create an HTML list? And at the end, you need also to add an image or to display an image. So the next is, how can I display an image using what? Using HTML. So basically, this is what you are being asked. And also it is saying that ensure that the image is displayed with the width 300 pixels and height 200 pixels. So on this image, it's actually restricted to 300 pixels to a height of 200 pixels. So in other words, just to test you if you really understand how can you create an HTML list, how can you add an image to your HTML, something like that, and able to display that, something like that. So it's very basic, but how can you do that, right? So what you really need to understand is the HTML part. How do you do the list in HTML? So what I have here, it's an index page that I have, and it's a PHP file. So for you to run that, I think these are the basic things that we have talked about before. How do you run this, right? I think we've talked about whenever you want to run a PHP file, you need to have a server, right? And you can have either normally we use the Apache server, but this comes wrapped in the WAMP server or the SAM server, something like that. So you really need to have a WAMP or SAM for you to do that. I think we've talked about this before, and it's something that you really want. So because this is a PHP file, for us to do so, we need WAMP so that we could run it. So how do you run it? You run it using at the local host or the 127.0.0. I think it's one or something like that. The local IP address is the one that you need, right? So for me, I'm running it. It's on local host, and inside the folder called demo, and then it's an index page, something like that. So here it's blank because there's nothing there. So I think if you look at it, inside my local disk, inside WAMP 64, because this is the WAMP folder, and then you go inside the www folder. That's where you put your projects. Here inside wwc, that's where my projects are, and then this is the project folder that we're going to use the demo, right? So you see there are these images and this index file. That's why you see here inside here I've got this index and these two images, something like that. So whenever I want to run this demo project, now this demo, I mean this, so you go here and say localhost. So you first run your WAMP server, it's already running on my machine, and then you say you go inside the demo there, and then you run index php. So because this is the default page that is going to be executed, the index, so if I just come here and say demo and put this slash, what it does, it automatically picks the index page. So if you have index.html or index.php, whatever, that's the that's the page which is going to be displayed automatically, right? So that's the root page of your website, the index page. So that's what happens there. So I just want to explain this so that whenever we are doing anything else, I am not going to explain these basics. So these are the basics. So if you have any that you really want to ask for today, maybe just type it in the on the chat, on the live chat. I'm monitoring it as well, so I'll be able to see and whatever if you really need any help. So basically here if you want so the question was, so now let's attempt the question. The question was saying that write in HTML code, right? So I'm inside in a PHP file, so if I want, we know the basics, right, of an HTML page. How does the HTML page look like, right? I think we've talked about it. So you have this doc type to say that this is a or do this document is an HTML type, or please take this as what is HTML, so that the browser now when interpreting it, it interprets your page as what, as an HTML. Then this one is for the type you are using English language, something like that. And then the character set that we are going to use as well. This is the metadata, the viewport, whatever, the width, whatever you're saying. Take width of the page to take the device with, something like that. We on the mobile, we on something like that. That's where you use so that's where you use this, right? And then there is the title. We've talked about this. So all these things goes into the header section. So everything that we want to be displayed here, right, is the one that we put on the board or inside the body text, right? So I think we've talked about all these basics, the HTML tags, whatever, how do you do that, whatever, something like that, the HTML elements. We've talked about this. All right, so what we want to do here is to have the list, right? So let me just have maybe a header one about the HTML list, right? So let's have maybe a list here. So about let me just say maybe list of vegetables, because they looks like it's a list of vegetables there. So next, what I want to do, so about those predictions, right? So the next thing that I would want to do is someone is saying that, can we write HTML different and the PHP code different, or it's better to blend them together, or it depends on what you want to build? Okay, so basically what happens is HTML is specifically for the structure of the website, right? So it's up to the design that you want to go with. But what I would say is, first you put the HTML, or come up with the structure of what you want to do, and then later on write the PHP code as the server side, right? Whenever you want to now have the business logic, that's when the PHP comes in. So for now, we just want to display an HTML list, so we do not need PHP. Yes, we can have HTML inside a PHP file, like what we are seeing here. That's what we are doing. Or we can name this file to be .html. But here, if I just do like this, then I can also quickly switch to, even in HTML, if you can quickly switch to PHP, you can do so. But what I'm trying to say is, now you need to understand that PHP is mainly for the logic, business logic, while HTML is mainly for the structure. So you can mix all of them whenever you want that business logic inside your HTML. You can mix the PHP there. There are ways of adding PHP to HTML. Like here, I'm inside in HTML. I can escape to PHP using the PHP tags, something like that. I think we would have a chance to demonstrate that later. But for now, let's just keep it simple and keep it cool. So let's look at the HTML part. How do you add the HTML? So basically, what the HTML list, right? So for list, now you need to look at this, right? Here you have got 1, 2, 3. What it means, this one is an ordered an ordered list in HTML. It's not an unordered list where you have maybe your list is bullets, like it have got bullets or something like that. But here it have the numeric numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's an ordered list. So you just need to use the OL tag there for an ordered list. And then what do you do there? The next thing is to put the list item inside this ordered list, right? So normally by default, because it's an ordered list of these numbers 1, 2, 3, so by default it gives you as 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. So here what you really need to do is to put the list item. So use li for list item. So here, what do I want to put there? So first I'm going to put beetroot, so it will be beetroot, something like that. So maybe for it to be clear and smart, let me just keep it like what it was. Sorry. Okay, so let me just keep it like this. All right, so the next thing is what I'm going to put there next. It's it's a list. It's a list item again. Here I've got ginger, so I will do say here I'll put ginger, something like that. And what do I need next? So next I need carrot there, so I put li there, then I'll put carrot, something like that. And then next, what do I put there? So for me, I've got all those suggestions. I know what I'm doing there. So as a beginner, you do not need to use all these suggestions, so that you try to crack yourself finding out how you do it, something like that. And then at the end, you end up then you use all these suggestions, whatever. So after doing this, what else do we need? Nothing there. So I think I can run this and try to see the output. So I've got list of vegetables, and then here is the list 1 2 3. So we've managed to create the list, and the list is there by just doing this, right? So this header that I've put here, this heading here, it's not necessary for the solution. Really, it's not even necessary, but I just do that so that we could see how you do that. So here, before we put the image there, you can also put type here, right? Like type, then as these are attributes, right? So here you can control the type, right? Like what I've said. So I want to run this. Okay, like what I've said. So if you run this here, you've got A, B, C, D, something like that. So you can control the type. So it depends with what you you really want to do. You can also put the Roman numerals or something like that, right? Like if you put I there, so you put 1 2 3 4, something like that. So it's up to you on that one. So by default, it comes with those numbers, something like that. So basically, that's what you do there with the list there, right? So it's we've got 1 2 3. So the next thing is about adding an image. So it's very simple. If you want to add an image, you use this img element, right? And this image, now we've got the alternative text. Like if the image is not there, then it displays the alternative text, something like that. So I will say maybe vegetables images. So if I run this, it shows that there is an image which is supposed to be here, but the image is not there. So it shows the alternative text, right? So here, let me put the image here as maybe vegetables. The vegetables dot p, is it png or jpg? It's jpeg. Okay, so after doing this, if I run this, I'm getting this image, right? So there is something there that we didn't comply with. It was saying ensure that the image and height is 200 pixels. Height is 200 pixels, something like that. So after doing that, now we refresh and see now it is what it is affected. So this is not, though this is not the best way of rendering an image to give it the height and width. You can have a wrapper here, it put inside the div, and then you give the height and width, or you style the div, whatever, then it will take that shape, and then you overflow hide or scroll or something like that, so that we do not really shrink the image or to widen like maybe what it is looking like now. So so that we do not distort the image, something like that. But otherwise, basically for an exam, this is what you could do. This is what you could do, right? So basically, that's how you attempt this first question. So it was very simple and very easy and very direct. Right. So now let's look at the issue of this HTML form that we have, which says design an HTML form with the following fields. There's the full name, there's the email, and then there's the message there, right? And then we need to add a submit button that sends data to process.php. So there's something that you really need to look here. There's this which says we need to submit to process.php. So we need to make sure that maybe we have that file as well. But if you are writing now on a paper or something like that, you really do not need to create this. But now on your form, you need to know that this form must send the data to what? Must send the data to process.php. I think it's very clear and very simple. You know how to do it, and then we discuss how to do it. Then here it says implement form validation, and you are going to use JavaScript to ensure that all fields are filled before submission. So you can do that by using HTML, where you could say this attribute is required, this element is required, this element is required, something like that. But because here it is specifically saying use JavaScript to validate if and every field is filled before send for processing to process.php, which means we also need to do what you call a client-side validation using JavaScript, right? So go and look at also validation. Then we can have server-side validation, where we could do the validation on the server side inside the process.php. But because you are not required to do that, let's look at this now. So the next that we need to do is to create this form with the full name, email, and message, and after that we will send it to a file called process.php for processing. So we'll talk about later. I think these questions are interlinked here, so let's first do this task, right? So that's what we want to do is the task. So we really need to know what do we really need to do first here, which is to create what? Which is to create a form, right? So normally what comes here, it's now on the order of what you are going to do, because here it's just a question which is saying just do a form, right? And then you design this form with these fields, right? There is no specific way that we want to do it, whatever which is mentioned. So what you just need to do is to create a form, right? I think my network is a little bit low, so we are going to have so what we are going to have is a form, right? So this form, you have got so I've created a form element, something like that. So the form element, as you see here, I've got this. So we have got this form, and there's the action there. So inside the action, that's where you put the file which is going to process this, right? And this file is supposed to be process.php, something like that, right? And you know, we need to specify the method that we are going to use, right? Are we going to use the get or the post there? So here let's use what? Let's use post, something like that. So we are going to use post as a way, or as the method that we are going to use. I think we've demonstrated how to use post, how to use get, or something like that. We'll talk about it as well, because I think it's really something which is very, very important. I think you know that if we're using post, we hide all the data that we are going to send. It's not going to be displayed on the URL, but when you're using get, it's going to be displayed on the URL where we are sending the data. And we've said that make sure that if you want to send something which is not sensitive, you use get there, there's no problem. But if you want to send something which is sensitive, like passwords, whatever, then use what? Use post. So here we are going to use post here, since we are going to send personal details there, student details, something like that. So that's what we are going to do, right? So the next thing that we are going to do, because validation, we're going to do validation later, the first thing is to come up with what? With the form, right? So here, because we are going to do validation, I'll talk about later how do we add JavaScript validation there. We want to create the functions and do something like that for validation. But now let's just keep it cool and keep it simple there. Maybe I can put also the name of the what? The name of the form, right? And then let me name this as maybe conduct us, something like that. It's conduct us form. We can use this now, the name of this form. We can use the name of this form maybe in JavaScript later on when we want to do something, right? When we want to do something, we can use that, right? So now let's look at the next part that we want to do. So if you look at it, we want to take what? The full name, right? So the next thing is to have the input element that you want there to take that, to take the full name. I don't think it's something which is very, very hard to do. Maybe you can have a label, you can have something like where you design having a label for this, something like that. But let me just keep it simple there. Let me just say full name, right? And then I'll put the input there, something like that, right? What happens is that when I do this, I'm going to have this one is going to be treated as just text, right? So I want to come here and refresh. It's going to be treated as just text like this, and then I have a box to put the value that I want to put there. But you could use label there. That's the smartest thing to do, to have a label for the input. Like here you have a label instead of having this, something like this, sorry, something like this. You have a label for the full name, input, whatever, and then you write full name here, and if you run this, it will be just looking the same, right? So you could put a label for this input type. So this one is going to be input type text, because I just want to take the full name, and then I will give it the full name here, and then I would want to take out this, the required part. You want to do this using what? Using JavaScript, right? That's what we want to do there. And then we've used this break line to jump 2 lines, so that whatever we are going to do is going to come maybe after we skip 2 lines, something like that. And next we want to take this email, right? So to take the email, so you can also do like what you've done there, to put a label there, and this label is for what? Is for email there. And what's this label is going to be like this email. And then after this, what do we need to do it there? We have got the label there for the email there. Then now let's put the input attribute for what? For email, like this. So after doing this, we've got this, the input attribute type email, right? So guys, for input type here, it changes according to what you want to take. If you want to take numbers, put number here, something like that. So here I want to take the text, so we have put text as type. The ID is one that we are going to use if you want to pick it, the input using ID, right? If you want to pick it using name, you can pick it using name, something like that, whenever you are processing later, right? So if you want to, now here we have put the email there as type here, because we want to take what? We want to take an email. I think it's simple and straightforward, like what we have done here. And then the next thing that we want to do is to take what? I think is to take the actual message that we want to do. And when it comes to text to a message, now I think is we could use the text area element, because when it comes to the message, you know, I think it have got a lot of input that you could put there. So let's put it as what? As a text area. And I think we've talked about this, that the text area like this one that we have here normally does take the rows and columns, like how many rows do you want and the columns that you want. That one determines the text, the amount of characters or whatever that we are going to get. So after that, we are going to get something like this, right? So why am I getting this? I think there's something that I've put there. Is there anything that I've put there? I think here, what is on this? Okay, I think it wasn't closed very well. Okay, so it wasn't closed very well. So what you need to do is to have this text area, because it's a text area, so you need to close it here. So there's nothing that we are going to put here. There's nothing that we are going to put there. So we have got the ID and the name there. So after doing this, our form is now complete. This form, we've got the full name, the email, and the message. What we really need to put now is the submit button, right? That you can use to submit, something like that. So now let's have the submit button. It's normally inside, it is supposed to be inside the form, right? So we're going to have the submit button. The type is submit. If you do not give it submit as type there and you make it a button, something like this, what happens is that it is going to appear as a what? As a button, and when you click it, nothing happens there. But if you make it type submit, when you click it, if I refresh here and click it, what it does, it submits the form to a file called process.php. So you need to know that when the type that you put there, it should be the type of submit, and then the value here is the one which is going to be sent with the form when you are submitting, something like that, right? So basically that's how we do this. So our form is now what is now complete. So the next thing, what are we supposed to do is to implement validation, because here we're being asked to put JavaScript what validation, right? So how do you do the JavaScript validation? So normally what you do is, for this one we could just put the JavaScript code, right, to validate this inside the head section, right? And that's where we put our script tags and try to do the validation. So here you could just put a script tag, right, like this. So inside this script tag, that's where we are going to put the validation form. So here you can put the type there as what is the JavaScript, something like that, but it's not really necessary there. So once if you say script, so everything inside here will be taken as a JavaScript code, right? So what do you want to do here? We want to have a variable for name, right? So this one we are going to take the name that we are going to the name of the form that we are going to process. So how do you access that? So normally we do access this through the document route, right? So this is our document here. So we use document, right? So after using this document, so within this whole document, we want to get an element, or we want to get the form, right? So you can use dot forms, right, because that's what we want to get, right? So we want to get a form. In this form we are going to get we are going to put its name, right? So it depends with the name that you have given to this form, right? So you want to have the name of the form, and then we take the values of those whatever, or the values of what do you call it, the values of the element, something that on the form. But before this, I think I've didn't do it very well, because what we want to do is to have maybe let me just I think I've clicked something. Before doing this, I think I just need a function. Let me put it inside a function, so that we would call, because when you want to validate, you need to call a function, right? So let's put all the code inside the function. So to create a function, you say function, then here we could just call it validate form, or you can call it the way you want to call it. But let me say this one is for validation, right? So let's just call it validate form, something like that. We want to validate the form, and then we do this, something like that. So what we do here with this validate form function, now whenever you are submitting, you need to call this function. That's what you really need to do. So the next thing that I'm going to do now, let me now create that variable name, and I'm said that I want to say document here, document dot forms. Then what do I do there? Then what I will do here is to someone is calling me, but I think I'm not going to take that call. So what I will do now is to put, so what I do now is to put the name of the form. I think I've called it what, contact us form, right? So it's going to be contact us form there, and then so I'm not going to do anything else besides that, right? Sorry, so what I'm going to do is so someone was calling me. What I'm going to do, because I want the name, the name which is this element. So I want the name which is this element, not the name of the form. The name of the form, I'm going to use it as the form that you are going to target, and then after that you are going to target the element. I don't think it will be necessary for me to keep the name of the form, because there isn't really anything that I really want to do there. So maybe what I'm going to do is here I need to put the element that I want, which is the full form, and then after that you put dot value to get the value of that. So if you look at it here on the form, we've got this with the name full name, something like that. So you could also use dot get element by id as well, something like that. So after doing this, what can I do next here is also to get the email, right? So I could just repeat this same thing, and then I will repeat the same for emails, something like that. So I will get document.forms. Then for this, just for me to be able to pick the value that was entered by the user. So the value that was entered by the user, something like that. So after I'm able to pick that value, the next thing that I can do is to now come up with the logic now of validating. And this logic of validating is just a matter of checking. Here it was saying that we need to make sure that whenever we are sending the data, we need to make sure that all the fields are what are filled. So we are just going to check if it is empty or if it is not. So we are going to check if the name or email or message is now, if any of them are now. And then what do? We could just say please fill this, something like that. So that's that's what we really need to do, right? So let's check that. So we are going to have if name is equal to now or something like that. If the name is equal to now or email is equal to now, message is equal to now, so we are just going to send a alert that all fields must be filled out, then we return false, something like that, right? But what if these fields are filled? What it means is that the form is going to be just processed and submitted, something like that. So if you come here and you try to refresh and send here, it will still submit the form. Why? Because we didn't call the validation function. So you've created the function. So the next thing that we need to do is to call the function through the on submit attribute on the form function. So on the form, so what you do here, you come here and you need to call on submit, right? On submit. So on submit, you want to call the function that we have created, and that function is what? That function was validate what? Was validate form, right? So what you need to do is to return on submit, please return it was a validate form, something like that, right? Validate form, and it was something like this. I think that's what it was. And then if you refresh there, if you try to submit, I'm still not getting what I'm supposed to get. So I think now I need to look at the name of the function. Is it the correct name of the function that I've used there on submit? So let me look at this. Is submit form with capital letter F there, right? So let me put the capital letter F, and then let me refresh this and try to submit. Then I'll get an alert which says that all fields must be what? Must be filled. So if you look at this, we've done the validation, right? We've done the validation, and we didn't just do the validation there, but we've actually created the form. Make sure that it's sending the data to what? To process.php, and then also make sure that all the fields must be filled. So that's what you, so there's also a way of just targeting maybe one field there. So if I try to say this, then it will say all fields must be filled. So it's not refreshing the page, it's just not doing anything. It's just, but if I do this now, then it sends the data there. But if you look at it, I'm getting an error. Why am I getting an error here? It's because the page or the document that you are sending the data is not even there, right? So that's why we are getting this error. So if we have got the page, then the data is going to be processed there, and then we got the we get the data or something like that. So basically, if you're in an exam situation, you do not really care that the file is there. It's just that you need to make sure that it is sending the data to this, right? So I think that's all on this one, unless there's some that I've missed, but that's all for this one. You just need to have the script, and then you declare variables, and then you pick the form there, and then you take its element there, and then you put dot value to get the value there. You can also use the get element by ID or by name, something like that, to access those things. You can also do that. Is where you can go around and look at how you can do that. But basically that's how you do. So if you have got any question, please, you need to ask. So here you can also, there are always some ways to do that. Maybe you can also check if name is not there, then you do something. But for this one, I think with the kind of the question that you have, that we only to submit if all fields are filled, then the best way to do it is just to check if any of this is equal to now. If it is not filled, then we will just positive with an empty string, then we just return false. When you return false, it means it will stop the submission of the form. And so you make the alert and then we stop the submission of the form. So if you do not put this, it will continue to submit the form to the file which is supposed to process it, which is the next PHP file that we are going to do on the next question. So the next question was saying PHP form handling. So the next question was saying, question 3 was saying, create a file named process.php, right, to capture the form data, which is this data that we have here, the full name, the email, and the message, and then connect to a MySQL database. And then the database name, it should be contact db, and then the table should be contact us with the ID, full name, email, and the message. And as you see that on the form we do not have ID, so I think this one, it's an auto created something like that, some sort of something which is being auto created, right? So someone was asking, so about the naming in front, let is it the names from a form, or which name are we using? Okay, so let is a way of declaring a variable in JavaScript. Go and look about ways you can declare variables there. There are ways of creating objects. You can use the var as well to create variables in JavaScript there, or not even give it a type there, whatever. So JavaScript will always just give it a type with whatever you put there. So the let keyword there, you can use it also to create or declare variable, something like that. So if you look at it, what we have here, this name is a variable that we've declared in JavaScript, which is going to be stored the value that we have here. So we are checking if the value that we are taking from the form and put it in a name. So we are checking here if it is empty, or if it is an empty string, then we could alert that all fields must be entered. So this one is where email here that we have here, it's a variable that we have declared in JavaScript, not an input element that we've created here in HTML, but it's a JavaScript variable that we have declared or created. And we are going to store it the value of email, which is the input to this one from here. So whatever you are going to type is going to be stored here, and then we check if it is an empty string or not. So if it is an empty string, then we say please all fields must be what, must be filled out, something like that. So that's what's really happening. The message there, we take the value here. So this value, how are we taking it? We take it from the form named contact us, and you are looking for an element inside that form, which is what, which is named message. So the form is contact us as name here, and then you are looking for an element called what, with the name message, something like this. So this is the text area. So we get the value whatever you type there on the form, and then we check if it is empty or not, something like that. So that's what's happening there. I saw a question there for someone asking what is this. So that's what is happening there. So the next thing that we are supposed to do, so we are now we have make sure that whenever this form, if something is going to be submitted, when all the elements are filled out. So the next thing that we need to do is to answer this question, which says we need to create this process with the PHP. So in an exam situation, you assume that the database is already there. You do not need to create the database. Most of the time we're told that assume that the database is already there or something like that. So you are going to have a PHP script which is going to send the data to this whatever, something like that, or the code, we just create that database. If it's not there or something like that, then we store all these values when you create the code, the connection, something like that. But because I want to demonstrate and run this, so I think I need also to create that, right? So I also need to create the database with the full name, email, and the message, right? And then we come back here and you quickly code this, right? So let's just do that How do we do that? Let me come here and have and go inside the PHP MyAdmin. So for my database, it have got a password there, and you see it just a root there for the root user, something like that. So for you, maybe sometimes it will be not having the password. So you need to know that whenever you are connecting, so you need to have that. So for me, I need to create a new database, right? So the database name here, I put the database name here. So what is the database name that I'm supposed to put? Is contact DB. I hope I didn't create this before. Contact DB. So I'll create the database, right? So after doing this, database was created, and if you look at it, I'm now in contact DB. So the next thing is to create a table. The next thing is to create a table, right? So this table that I'm creating, so the database already there, is supposed to be contact us table. So I create contact us table inside this, and the table should have ID full name, so it's 4, right? Yes, it's 4 columns, and then it should be having the ID. So this one, it will be ID, and let me auto increment it so that this one will become our auto value, which will be already there or something like that, so that when you are now putting the values there, we do not need it to put another key there, or else you could just have a logic to create that key and wrap it with the data which is will be coming from the form as well. Yes, there's sometime where you'll be need a customized key, like here it is all you have got a personal, a customized pin number there, which start with a P, and then or something like that, maybe follows the year you have joined the institution or something like that. So you could also generate that, but here we're just going to do that, and then we have got the full name, and maybe the message there. Is it the message? What do we have? Full name, email, and message. So we have the email and the message there, and then here, because it's full name, it should be text there or var character there. Let's just put var character, and let me put size of 40 there. Let me just say 50, but normally name cannot even have up to 50 characters, something like that. For email there, let me just have the type of var character there, and let me put it maybe at 100 there, but it will be maybe wastage of memory as well. Let me have a mixed here var character there. Maybe here this one, let me just give it 200 characters there, and let me try to save it and see. Yes, it will create the table. So now we have got this table now in the database with ID, full name, email, and message, right? We've created it. So you could also write the SQL commands to create this, but I'm not going to do that. I think this is the simple way of doing it using this way that we've done. So the next thing that we really need to look at now is to have the code which will capture that form data that we are sending. And then after that, so how do we capture that? We capture that data using the PHP. That's when the PHP now comes into play, right? So with PHP now, when you now capture this data, it's now up to you how do you going to do this implementation. But if you look at it, this one was very specific. We are not going to put the PHP code inside this same file. You can process it here, but we are supposed to send it to another file called process.php. So the next thing is to create the file called process.php, something like this. That's the next thing that you really need to do, right? After having this, what do you need to do? Because you want to write PHP code, you need to put the PHP tags, right? This one, the PHP, this one, which shows that the next code that we are going to put is sorry, what have I done there? I think the next thing that I'm going to put is the PHP code. So everything inside here will be taken as a PHP code or something like that. That's what is happening there. Everything inside here will be taken as a PHP code. And remember, I want to capture the form data, right? So here I'm not going to do the validation whatever. We've done the validation on the servers or on the client side validation whatever, so I'm not going to do any validation here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to take the values. How do we do that? So here we also need to declare the variables where we'll be storing our values. So how do we declare these variables? Normally in PHP, not normal, but in PHP we use the dollar sign, this monetary value assign, something like that, to declare a variable. So every variable that you are going to declare is going to start with this dollar sign. So here I will say full name, right? It's full name. So here I'm going to put the global variable, the post global variable. Why? Because this is the one that I've used. If you look at it, if you come to this index PHP, I've said I'm going to use the method post to send the data. So what happens is that it takes this whole data for this form, then it puts it in a global variable called post. In that global variable, it will be some sort of an array which will be having the value. So you use the key to get the exact value that you want. So if you want a name, you put, because the input or the element, HTML element, the form element here that we have here, which will be having our value, have got the name, what? Full name. So if you want this, so we use post and then we pass full name, so it will get the value for this, and then it will put it in our PHP variable, something like that. So here we need to also use the dollar, because the all variable starts with that, and for all the globals you are going to use that underscore first, something like that. So post for this is super global, the globals variable that comes with what, with PHP. So in here, that's where you put those codes, and then you type a full name, or you just put something like this. So that's what you do there. If you look at it, now we have this full name. So what it does, it takes the data which is coming from the form, and it takes the exact element, which is the full name element there, then it puts the value in there, and then we will do whatever we want to do with it later. And what we want to do later is to connect to the database and send it to the database, something like that. All right, so what we are going to do is to have again the next variable, which is the email there, right? So I think because now I've tried to explain this, I think I can now just use this to take all the values, something like this. So now we've got all the values in our variables, full name, email, and message. I think we've taken everything that we want from this. So the next thing that we want to do is maybe the next thing that we want to do is to connect to the server, right? But I think now everyone understands how do you get the data from the form there, and maybe something like that. So maybe let's just try to echo out one thing there. Let me just try to echo out the name there, something like this. Let me just try to echo out, so it's a full name, right? And then maybe everything there, and see how this works, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the full name, the email, and then maybe let me just say testing there, and then let me submit this. So you see that we've got the full name, the email, and the message there. Everything has been submitted to our page, and we've displayed it. So instead of displaying it like this, we use echo to just echoing out whatever I want to display, something like that. So instead of doing this, now we want to put the logic of saving to the database as the requirement that we're supposed to do. So how do you do that? How do you connect to the database? All right, so for you to connect to the database, now we need to have the server name that we are going to use, the username or the username of the account that we're going to use to access the database, as well as the password of the database. And when I was logging into my PHP admin, you've seen that I've said that there was a username which was root, and I've said that the password is root. So the user that I'm using, or that I've used to currently log in and creating database whatever, is called root, and then the password is root. But for most of you, when you install this, it comes with username, root, and the password will be just empty. So for you, you do not need to put a password if you are experimenting on your machine or something like that. So here what I'm going to do is to have a variable to store that, so that when I'm just making any connection, I will just make use of that variable, something like that. So let me just have a variable called server name or something like this, server name, and then I'm going to use localhost for the server name there, right? So for server name here, you can also put the IP address that you are using. So instead of localhost, there is the IP address for localhost. You can also use that as well. It can work. Otherwise, you need to put the exact IP address where the database is actually stored. So the next thing, I need the username and the password there. So I've said that my password is root here. So I need to put a root, but for you, you do not need to put any password. So now I've got the server name, the username. So I also need to put the database name, so that I can make a connection straight to the database, instead of just making a connection and then try to create the database and then link to the database, the exact database that I want to use. So here I'm just going to say database, the database name, and then the database we've said is what? I think it was contact DB. Yes, contact DB. So that's the database that we are going to use. And then now when you are writing the queries, whatever, now you will be picking the tables inside this this database, something like that. So here we just created the variables. We didn't make any connection to the server now. So these are just variables that we've done. So the next thing is to make a connection. So how do you make a connection? You make the connection using this MySQL function, something like this function. In this function, takes the server name, the username, the password, and the database name. You can even pass just your server name, username, and password only, but here we want to pass the database name as well, so that we connect straight to the database that we want. But if it happens that you want to create the database later, that's how you do it. Then you do not need to put the database name. So after doing this, we want to save the connection that we've created, so that we can use it later to access the tables, something like that. So to establish that connection, you can do this. Also, you can put these values exactly here, like the local host, you put it here in quotes, the root, you put it here in quotes for username, then for password, you put it in quotes or something like that. But I think it's smart to do it this way, because whenever you want to use this, then you just reference to the variable, something like that. So after doing this, you want to check if the connection is actually successful or not, right? I think that's the best the network is there. But what you're saying is that if there is any challenge with the connection, they need to give us that error, right? So what I will do is for now, if there is no error, then we went on or we move on to do what we want to do, which is to save this data or to create an SQL query to send there. So here for now, let me just check if it is let me put the else party and just say whatever there, and just echo out a database connected successfully, something like that, right? So this is what I'm going to do, and I'll try to check if the database is connected successful, right? So it will say database connected successfully. So we've managed to connect to the database, something like that. So next time we start from here, we send the data, and then after that we see what happens. So the database was connected successfully. So what if I came here and maybe put, instead of putting this, let me put a wrong name there, the database is not there, and then let me come here, maybe let me come here and let me refresh this and try to submit. You see that I'm getting an error which says unknown database, like this one. It's the database which is not in my database, so that's why I'm getting the error, something like that. So basically that's how you connect to the database and capture those errors. Let me just make sure that we do not have an error before we move. Yes, prepare. Now want to prepare an SQL statement, right, to insert data into the table. So how do you do that? Let's just create a variable called SQL, right? You can name it the way you want, but this one is an SQL to insert the data to insert the data into a table, right? So the table is what? So I'm just going to to do it this way, yes. So this one you create an SQL statement. So this SQL statement is just an SQL statement that you can even type here, right? If you go, so the table is contact us, so you need to, like, if you come here, if you want to insert any data here, but only that, because it should be contact us, not contacts, it should be contact us. So because if you look at it here, it's we want to take the values from these variables, right? So it's as good as after putting these values and matching them with these columns that we have here, you find out that it's just the same as the query that you write here if you want to insert, right? If I click this one, you find here, you say insert into contact us, you put the what, the ID there as the first value, the full name there, the email, and then the message there, and then you put the values inside the values there, and then you just send the value, something like that. So that SQL statement that you are writing here is not the same as the SQL statement that you are putting here, right? And then after that, what you are going to do is now to run this SQL statement and get get to see if the data is going to be sent to what, to the database, right? So normally, how do you do that? You use the query command to send that data, right? So what you do is simple as this. You can use the if statement, or you can just send the data there, but you want to see if it was successful or not, something like that. So you could just say connect using the connection that we've created here. Then you use the query function, then you pass the SQL statement that you want to run. So if this returns true, it means that you have inserted a new record. Otherwise, we will print the error, and what could be that error, something like that. But if you do not want to do that, you can just call this, it will send the query, but you want to know if it was successful or not. So you can check if it is true. So it returns true if it is successful, something like that. So if I come here, try to send the data there, and you see that it is saying new record was created there. If I go here, let me go and browse here. What am I getting here? I'm getting a new person here with this data. It's because I didn't started from here, just because it was something that I've already sent, so I just resend that data. So here I can just maybe it's a same maybe a Kanonga or something like that. Let me use this test email there, and then let me put maybe testing as well here, and then I will submit the data and say the new record was created successfully. If I come here and refresh, you need to close the connection as well. After that, you need to, it's always good to close the connection. I think it's something which is good to do after that, to close the connection. But basically, that's what you do there. I don't know if there are any questions there or contribution there, but basically that's what you do there. After that, you need to close the connection, like what I've said. After all the operations that you want to close that connection, so that it will not be always active, something like that. But otherwise, basically, that's what you do there. That's what you do there, and then you get the data. So for this one, it was saying insert the form data into the table and display a confirmation message. So it was good to also to put that. So it was part of the answer as well, to put this confirmation message that new record was what was created. It was part of the answer, of the solution. So this is the script that you want, just like that. This is the script that you wanted. This one, this is the script that you wanted. It's just a simple script. Can put whatever you want to put there to spice it, but that's what it is. That's what it is. So maybe what I would want to do is now to just quickly go to the this part. I think this part which says this part will say connect to a PHP, connect PHP to MySQL and retrieve data. Okay, so now it's no longer about sending data to the database, but you want to retrieve data from the database. In this data that we're going to retrieve, you are going to store it in a table. So if you look at it now, the skill here is on the SQL statements and then on the HTML part of creating a table. How do you create a table in HTML, and how do you take data from the database? So we assume that there is a database called searchdb, and then from that we are going to have a course code and a student pin and a score, and then from there must be a course code. Go code this, and then we will take we fetch and display students who pass the course, this one, which means that the score must be greater than or equal to 50, and we display that in an HTML table, something like that. So let's just create this fake database that we'll be having, or this database. But for you do not need to create the database. You assume the database is already there, so your code will be starting from that PHP file which is going to process that or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out everything inside the index there, and then I'll put all the code to do this or something like that, right, inside there. So I think for this one, let me just create the database. Let me quickly create the database so that we save time. So this database is going to be it was supposed to be searchdb, something like that, and then we create. And then after that, what are we supposed to put there? It's a table called course result. We need to have a table called course result. That's the table there. It should have 1, 2, 3 columns instead of this 4 here. Let's have, sorry, it should be 3, right? So this table is going to have a course code, and then this course code, student pin, and score. Okay, so we can make it the what do you call it? Let's just make it for me, let me just make it not now, let me just make it an auto increment. But sometimes you find out that there might be a relationship where we could say this course code is from the course table, and then maybe student pin is from the table student, and then maybe you want to now create a query that you've got a join, where you need to join the course table, the student table, and then maybe we have this one, the course result table or something like that. So now that's where you'll be getting all those values. Like here, or actually we have got the score, so we could do get the score. so we could get the score. But what if you want to show the student name instead of showing the student pin? So you'll be now need to visit the student table, and then you get the pin for that, sorry, you get the name for that student with that pin or something like that. So for this one that we have here, it's not asking that, but be prepared to have such scenarios where you could now need to link maybe 2 tables or whatever to take, so that you get all those values, something like that. So what I would do here simply here is I've made this one a primary key, and it will be having something, it will be something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something like that. But I think it was good to make not the course code but the student pin, but there we'll talk about it later. I think that's what we've done in database, where we could talk about this one be part of the primary key, this one's too will work as a primary key or something like that. There's a name for that type of a primary key. You've done that in database. What is that? Whatever. When you're doing reference or integrate. But let me keep it as an auto increment value, and then I'll have the student pin there, student pin, and then what else do I have there? I've got the score, right? For score, let me just make it what do you call it? Let me just leave it as an integer there, and then let me have the student pin there. Let me make it maybe let me leave it as an integer as well, just so that things will be just as fast as possible. So we've created this one, so it will be just all integer, something like that. But sometimes for student pin, maybe it will be a string or something like that. So after this, what am I going to do? Because I've already, now I have the database and the table there, And then the next thing, the database is search DB, and then we've got the cost result. The next thing is to do what we're supposed to do, which is to fetch, right? So now we go, or we dive into our code, which is here on the index PHP, and I'm going to take out everything there, and I'm going to just create this basic HTML part here. And we do not really need this part, because from the look of it, we just need to write, to connect to the database, fetch the data that we want. So we do not really need all this, right? We do not really need all this. We do not really need all this, unless if there's something that we really want to do there. Otherwise, we just echo out whatever I want to echo out, something like that. So what I'm going to do is to first connect to the database, like what we have done there. So let's put the PHP, let's put the PHP text, and then after doing this, what I'm going to do is to now to make the connection. To make the connection, I want those variables like save a name to connect. So let me do this faster. I think we've done this. Even the database, we are no longer going to use this contact DB, but we are going to use search DB, something like that. And then I think this is the code that we've already connected to the database. So we just use the connection there. So what we do is with this one, we just make a connection using MySQL, and then after making that connection, and then we check if it is successful. If it is failed, then we display the error. And then the next thing that we need to do now is to make what is to make the query, right? That's the next thing that we really need to do, is to make the query, and then you something like that. So what we do now is to create that query. That query is the one that we've done before. Let's just create a variable called SQL, and then here what I'm going to do is to have the select statement. That's what we want to do. We want to select, right? So for this one, I'm going to put some quotes there. Let me just I just want to change what's here. What I want to select is not it's just the, what do we have? It's not this ID, but what we have here is we've got the course code, right? We want to select the course code, want to select the course code, and then the next thing that we want to select is the student pin, right? Is the student pin, and then the score. I think what we need is the score, but if you look at it, we want to take it from which table? The table was the table was course result, right? So we want to take it from course result. Was there any underscore? Otherwise we're going to, so there's no underscore there, it's course result there. And then now, because we are saying the score must be greater than or equal to 50, so we want to take it from the course here BC201, those with the course code BC201, and the score must be greater than or equal to 50. That's what we want, right? So we need this query to have the part where we have the where clause, right? So you want to take it from course result where the course code so let's have the where keyword. So I want to say where the course code, something like this, where the course code is equal to, oh, I think I've made a mistake that I wasn't supposed to even make there, and here I'm supposed to put I think it's single quotes for it to work, right? So because the course code, the course code must not be an integer there, because it was very clear that we are supposed to use BC201, something like that. So the course code must be not an integer there. I think we need to really revisit and correct the database there. It was very clear. So the next thing that we really want to do there is to use the end. Then what you want there is the score. So this is score, the score here, so it's just the score. So score must be greater than or equal to 50. So we use the greater than or equal to 50 there, just like that, and then boom, we are done and good with the what, with this part of writing this query. The next thing is to run the query and get the result. So what happens is that here it's not going to give us anything if we run this. So we are going to run this and get the results there. So you run it through this query and then you pass this one and then you get the result straight there. But the next thing that happens is that we are not going to get it because this one, the course code there, and we have put the integer there. I think we need to and we make it the primary key there. So let me just try to drop it, and then let's modify to add one column. Let's just add it at the beginning of a table there, and then we need to, it was a student pin, right? Student pin, and then let's make it a var character there, maybe of size maybe let me just say 6 there, because it's just BC20 or whatever, something like that. I think is 6 will be enough there for us. The table student pin should not be now or whatever. What's happening there? What have I deleted there? Let me put browse. Maybe if I want the structure, sorry, student pin is there. Okay, sorry, it's the, I think it's the, sorry, it's the course code that I'm supposed to put there. Is the course code. So at the beginning, let me put the course code. Sorry, with that should be course code, something like that. I think making errors, that's the good way to learn, right? So let me just put 6 there and let me just save. So after doing this, I think it will be good to go. So what we need to do next is to insert. Let's just insert values, right? So the course code here, let's put BC201, right? And then the student pin, let me put 1, and then the score, let me put 8 there, and then here let me put another student here, and then let me just put BC201, and then let me put the value as maybe 78, and then sorry, the student pin is 2, and then here the score is maybe 79, and then what I will do is I will set this so I'm having the error there that the data is too long for column course code at row 1. Why is it too long? 5, 6. Oh, so it's a 7 instead of 6 that I've put there. So I need to modify again. I need to modify the structure as well. I need to change this one. I need to change this one. Okay, let me just put 10 there to be safe. Otherwise we waste time going around that. I think so. You see, if you do not read well the question again, that's what happens there. And imagine you are in an exam, so that's what you happen there. So it's very good to plan first and then do what you want to do. I just took it for granted just because we do not want it to create the database. What we want to do is to measure into fetch and display, something like that. So I just took it for granted. But otherwise, if I planned it very well, I wasn't going to face all those challenges. So the next thing that I want to do is to insert values into this table. So I was saying that here it's BC201 student 1, then let me put 8 there, then here same course, then student 2, let me put 79, then let me put go there, then boom, we are good. So if you look at it, so this is the insert query that we've done there using a form, but this is what we've actually done. We've inserted all this data there. So I could just change this as well to make it maybe 3, student number 3, and this is student number 4. Maybe change this to 70, and maybe change this student, maybe this one actually failed, and then if I click go here, it will also insert those that data as well. So I could do add more if I want. I could also add more and add more if I want. I would edit this one as well to say no, let me just yeah, even I can edit this one as well. Maybe add student number 5 and student number 6, right? And insert this data maybe as 90, and maybe this one is 70, and I click go as well, and then I will insert. So I think I don't think it's not an issue, but we could have just put a star here, select all from table cost, something like that, and then So now what happens is it returns an array of rows, and then we need now to iterate through those rows to see what we have actually got from it, something like that. So we need to use a while loop to loop through the array that comes from the database. So what we are going to do here, we are just going to echo out maybe let me just say echo, then I'll just print this, something like that. I'll print that students who passed the BC 201, something like that. So if I come here and then let me go back here and then let me refresh this, so it will say students who passed BC 201. So after that, so I've just echo out this H2 or that tag or something like that. So after that, what I need to do is to have an if statement. Why if statement? Because we do not want to loop in an array without anything, like if there wasn't any value that we got. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to check if result have got like have got the rows there, the number of rows that we have, if they are greater than 0. And then what do? Then we will do the then we'll do whatever we're supposed to do. But before that, we need to put the structure there. We need to put the structure. So we need to put the structure of a table there, something like that. We need to put the structure of a table. Like in HTML, if you want to create a table, you have the table the table something like that. You need to have the table tag, I mean the tag name for table, right? So that's what we are supposed to do there. We want to put it in a table, right? So we want to first echo the table there. So after doing this, if we echo out this table there, then we will create a row, right, for that table. Like what we always do, we create a row which is going to be the header part of the headings, which is going to say this is going to be the course code, the student pin, and then the score, something like that. So that's what we really want to do there. So you can give it here, we've just give it a border there, a table there with a border there, right, the course code, the student pin, and the score, right? But what we do not have is the data. So next what we need to do is to put here, we can loop through, and then after that we could close our table, something like that. So what we need to do now is to loop through the whole table, something like that. So now we've got the course code, the student pin, and then the score as our headings, and now is to loop through the data. So how do you loop through that data? You just use the if statement, right? So if I just do this, maybe let's just go through this and see what's happening here. So what we are doing here is we are checking if the number of the number of rows, so the number of rows inside this result. So this is what we have, the number of rows. So if those number of rows is the key, remember this is an array, so this array have got a key like number of rows which is retained from the database when we do this query. So we check if it is greater than 0. So if it is greater than 0, what do? then we know that there's a row, at least there's at least one row that was returned from the database. So now we loop through the entire that array, right? So we use the while. So we say while there is still, so we use the fetch associative array to fetch from this result, right? So while there is still a row there, so we always fetch this first row, second row, something like that. So that's what will be happening there. So we fetch and store inside this variable named row. So inside this variable row here, there will be so this one again, it will be an array, but this array will be having the data for the first row or for just a row, something like that. So what we need to do is to put data inside a row. So that's why you see that here we've created this row and we have closed this row. Inside this row you put the td for table data, right? I think we've done this when we are doing HTML, when we talked about how do you do the how do you create a table there. So inside that, so we use the key to take the what, the course code, and then we put the table data for student pin, and then we put it for score. So it will keep on iterating until we no longer have any row there. So after that, then then we are done with the looping through and display all the rows with the students who have passed the BC 201. Otherwise, we just say that there are no results that were found. That's why there is that else part if there isn't any data about that. So if you do it, we have opened here. So that's what you need to do there. So you need to put, so you need to close this, and as well as closing the, I'm looking for the text. Okay, I was looking for this text to close the PHP. Okay, so after that you close the table and then you close the connection, then you are good to go. So if you refresh this, we've managed to, so that's how you take the data from the database, then in your PHP, and then display it. So if you want to design this now to look nice, whatever, it's now up to you. You know what to do with your CSS there, but otherwise that's what you can really do there. That's what you can really do there. If there are questions, please, this is the time to ask there. But this is what you can do to get all the data there. And I've put this with a 40 there so that you would see that the query is correct. So it's taking all those with the greater than or equal to 50, but this one with a 40, actually the student number 3 is not there. If you look here, it's not even there. It's not even there, just like this. So basically that's what you'll be doing there. That's what you'll be doing. That's what you'll be doing. So if there is any issue there, it's good if you could ask as well, or if there is any need of any help there. Then the last question was, I think this is the last question, which you are saying write a PHP script using a for loop to display numbers 1 to 10. This one is just for you to see how you can do this. I think it's very, very simple and very, very basic, guys. This one too, just so it's a matter of understanding how a for loop work. But I think you really understand from the way we've done C programming, Java, C++, you would always see that we always have a same for loop. So it's just the same with the for loop. It's just the same with the for loop of from PHP. It's just the same. So what I will do is I will take out everything here, and then what do? I'll open the tag from the PHP there, and then what I will do there, I'll close this, and then here that's where I need to write my code there. But basically, besides doing this, what else? It's just a for loop to display 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, so because let me show, there was someone who was asking, say, is it really need, there's really need of what HTML and what. Let me just show you the other way that you can do it. Can you have a proper HTML document, right, like this, inside this, and then inside the board here we want to display, then we escape to PHP, something like that. Then we could escape to what, to PHP, something like that. So inside here, every that you write inside here, will be regarded as a PHP code inside your HTML. So the interpreter now will interpret it as a PHP. After that, if that comes later, here down here will be taken as a what? Will be taken as an HTML. So what I want to do here is to print from 0 to what? Sorry, from 1 to 10 using a for loop. So here let me just say a head to here. Let me just say these are just numbers from 1 to 10. This is what I want. So if I come here and refresh this is what I got. So just down here, I just want to print 1 2 3 4 up to 10. So how do you do that? You go inside the for loop, and then here you just need to have this for loop here that we have here, right? So it's just you declare like what you used to do in a C program. You just say for int I is equal, so here to declare variable just use this dollar, then I there is equal to 1, I must be less than or equal to 10, and I plus plus. And then what do? You echo out the value of I, and then you just keep line after each and every value. So if you do this, you get 1 2 3 4 5 6 up to 10. So that's how you do it with the for loop. It's just the same if you want to do a while, if you want to use a while loop, but here it was specifically use a for loop. So it's very, very simple. The for loop that you used to write in C is just the same as the for loop that you write here. The while loop that you used to write in C, in C++, in Java is just the same as the while loop that you write here. So that's what it is. So just as simple as that. So basically that's what you do, and we use this echo out to print it to what? To the screen, and then you have the list of 1 to 10, something like that. So basically that's what you can do. So here we are putting the HTML here. So this will be this one. You are not seeing it here because it's being interpreted as HTML to skip a line. So PR is just for you to jump a line, something like that. The HTML to jump a line. Otherwise that's everything that I have. Otherwise here it's good if there is any question that you really want to ask, then you could ask that question. Someone was saying that what I'm learning is that you connect the database and then give the things you want to do in the database, e.g. insert, select, whatever, something like. Yes, that's what you do there exactly. So I don't know if there is any question or whatever, or any contribution that you really want to do there, but otherwise that's how you connect. That's how you connect database. That's how you do your things there. Selecting data, that's how you insert, that's how you create the list in HTML, whatever. So on the list there, we've only talked about the ordered list. What if it is an unordered list as well? You need to know how to do. If it is an unordered list, you use what you call the UL there. So you just need to experiment with the HTML elements, understand how do you do that. For CSS, I didn't do anything that is to do with the CSS, but I think we've covered that before. So we could also do that. Someone was asking, may you share the questions we have done as well. The questions are even here. The video is going to be saved here. You can revisit the video as well. The questions will be there. You will get them. So I was saying for the unordered list, you just need to use the UL there. Let me just quickly create something like this. So if you use the unordered list there, I think you see that you have those is something like that. You can play around with it or whatever, something like that, but that's to be an unordered list there. If you just say list item, maybe there, maybe one there, whatever, it will not be a good example there, but let me put maybe something like name or whatever, something like that, right? Is yes, let me have this, something like this. So that's what you can get there, right? Is there anything that I can play around with this? I don't think there's anything that that's really of any interest to styling, no. But anyway, you can go and play around with an ordered list there, whatever, but I don't think there's anything serious around there, but that's what you can do. Otherwise, thank you guys. Have a good weekend and a good time that's what I have for this live session.